Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Hilp and I am the State 4-H Specialist for Family and Consumer Science. Today we're going to be joining the Kentucky Master Clothing Volunteers as they teach us how to make a tote bag that you can enter in the Kentucky State Fair.
Hi, I'm Renee Corrigan, and I'm a Master Clothing Volunteer with Scott County and the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension. And today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make a Go Green market bag. And it looks like this, and it has a pocket. So it's great for a laptop or library books, anything you want to use it for, groceries. And these are the instructions that you can find on UK's website. And it is called a Go Green Tote Bag, and it is a level 1. And when I teach 4-H sewing, I'm usually teaching a 4-H level 1. So this is for 9 to 13-year-olds, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so we're going to talk about some requirements that you would need. And you would need 1 yard of woven, which is a cotton quilting type fabric, or the bag that I made is called a home decor. It's just a little bit heavier. So it just depends on how much body you want your bag to have. So this is just a cotton quilt type fabric. And I wanted to talk to you about directional. So if you can see the words, if you turn this, because this is one piece of fabric, if you turn this to do the other side of your bag, then your words are going to be upside down. This is another example of pictures and words, and also directional. It can be pictures, it doesn't have to be words, but you have to know that you cannot use directional fabric on this bag. This would be an example of a non-directional fabric. The stars are going any direction, same as these circles. So this is a non-directional fabric that would be perfect for making this bag. Now some supplies that you will need. A good pair of dressmaker shears. It's always good to have paper scissors, and you always want to mark them for paper. You never want to use your good fabric scissors to cut paper. So don't let anyone do that. Seam ripper is always good and handy to have. This is a sewing gauge, and it slides up and down, and it's good for measuring seams, or on this we're going to do some measuring 4 inches down or 2 inches up. So this is a nice sliding scale that you can use. You can also use a flexible tape measure like this, and it's usually hanging on my neck when I'm sewing. Then I have some markers, and if you have a darker fabric like this one, you can't use the dark red, so I use a silver or a white. On the blue, a red shows up good on the back. Another thing that you might need that isn't listed in the instruction but is helpful is a corner or point turner, and I can show you how to do that in a little bit. We have dressmaker pins with a nice little ball on the end. They're easy to grab. Or you can use wonder clips. These are really handy to use too. Then you have, you can use a yardstick, or if you have acrylic rulers. I like to use my acrylic rulers, and they come in different sizes. We should probably move now to my sewing room so we can show you how to put this all together. Okay, so you also will need an iron and an ironing surface, an ironing board, or another surface that you use for that, and of course your sewing machine. So now we're going to talk about actually making the pattern for your bag. So here I have some patterns cut out of paper, and you can do that way. If you don't want to make your paper pattern, you can just measure on the back of your fabric the dimensions that are on the instructions. This is the pocket. It is 9 by 20 inches. And this is the body of the bag, and it is 32 by 19. I have it pinned, or I have these that are called wonder clips, and they're really handy to use if you have any of those. They come in different sizes, and they're just really nice. They clip on and off. But pinning is fine as well. So the strap is not a paper pattern. It is 4 inches wide by 22.5 inches long. And I'm going to show you in a minute at the ironing board how to actually make this fold. I do want to talk to you a little bit about wrong side and right side of fabric. And I do have different fabrics here just for demonstration purposes. This one doesn't show wrong side and right side as well. So I have some other examples for you. So here's the right side of the blue fabric, and here's the wrong side of the blue fabric. This is a red fabric, and it's very obvious, wrong side. Also, the thing you need to know is the selvage edge, which is the factory edge of the fabric on both sides. It's more critical when you're making clothing, but on our instructions, it does show us arrows, and the arrows would line up with the selvage. So that's kind of important when you're cutting it out. Okay, so we are going to go to the ironing board now and show you how to fold the strap. Okay, so here we are at the ironing board, and this is also where we're going to use our seam gauge, our sliding measure. So I have a strap already done in a star fabric, and then I have our fabric here in the blue, and this is a 4 inch by 22.5, and you need 2 straps for your bag. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we go to the wrong side of the fabric, and we're going to get 1/2 inch on our sliding gauge, and then fold this fabric over to match our 1/2 inch. And then we're going to iron. And then we need to move it down and repeat that. All the way down the long side of the fabric. So we do the same thing on the other side. And then we will fold it in half. We will end up with this. We will fold it in half and iron that. And that gives us our strap. And then we'll go to the sewing machine, and you actually sew down both sides. And there's one strap. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine, and here's our pattern. This is our pocket. You cut one of these 9 by 20 inches. This is the one that I have wonder clips on. So I'm going to take this paper off. And this is just a demonstration fabric. I have actually another one that I'm actually going to show you that I've already partially shown, because I want you to remember to pivot at the corners. So here's our fabric, and this is the right side. Here's the wrong side. And we're going to match this up with the short ends. And then you'll need to pin it just so it stays where you want to and doesn't move around for your seam. I like to put the pins out this way because when you actually put it in the machine, they're easy to pull out. You don't want them the other way, and you have to stop at each pin, remember, before you sew over it. That will hurt your machine or break a needle. So we're going to take that out before we stitch. Okay, so we are on Sewing Instructions, Step 2, and you'll need to look at Figure C. So you're going to take your fabric and put it right sides together and folding the pocket in the center. You're going to match the short ends, and then we are going to sew around 3 sides. This is the fold side. This is the top of the pocket. And we're going to stop, and we're going to leave a 4-inch opening, and then we're going to begin stitching again. At the corners, we're going to pivot, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and sew to the edge. And remember, when you start and stop any sewing, you're going to go forwards and backwards so you knot your threads. So you'll do that there and there. Then you're going to leave 4 inches, come back here, back stitch again, come to this corner, pivot. That means leaving your needle in the fabric and turning the fabric, and then stitch back up. And these are 1/2-inch seams. So now I'm going to demonstrate for you with a red piece of fabric how to do this step. Okay, so here's my pocket, and here's the fold, and that goes on the left side. And I've already sewn this seam. When you're picking your thread, you would want to match it as best you can to your fabric color. I'm just using white here so it shows up. So this is the bottom of the bag, and this is where I'm stopping to leave my 4-inch. And I'm going to sew this other side. I'm going to put my needle down, my presser foot down, and I'm going to go forward a couple stitches and backwards a couple stitches, and then I'm going to come forward and I'm going to stop before I get to that pin. Take that one out. And again, this is wrong side up, right sides of your fabric together. I'm using the edge of my presser foot here on the edge of my fabric to get a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to come all the way down to this corner. And if you want to mark it a 1/2 inch, you can, so you'll know where to stop. And I'm going to stop, and the needle is down. And now I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to come over here. And you could mark 4 inches if you need to. I'm just going to guesstimate because it's not real critical. And we're going to sew and stop. We're going to go back and back stitch so it knots our fabric, and then cut. Lift the presser foot and pull your fabric out. Okay, so here's our stitching that we did, and what I'm showing you here now is how to reduce bulk. And I have clipped this corner, so you're going to clip across there, staying far enough away from your stitching, and then I cut a little bit of the seam allowance. And that is that side, and so I'm going to show you now here. I'm going to clip the corner, and it's just making a little triangle. And then I'm going to go up and stay about a 1/4 inch away from my stitching. And it's just going to reduce some bulk, and we're going to turn this pocket, and it's going to make it lay nice. Okay. And this is our point turner. This is where we're going to use this. And here's our opening that we left. And so now we're just going to flip this all the way around. And you can kind of poke it a little bit with your fingers. And then you're going to take your point turner and you're going to go in here, and you pivoted really nice, and you've got that nice angle, and that's what you want to see, that nice little angle there on that corner. All 4 corners. When you get that done, you're going to actually put it on your bag, and that's what I'm going to show you next. Okay, so here's our pocket, and here's our opening, and here's our fold. So I'm going to show you how to put it on the body of the bag. And here's the one that I made here. You're going to sew it on 3 sides and leave the top open, so you have your pocket. Okay, so here's our body of our bag, 32 by 19 inches. And we have the paper. You can remove the paper, all the pins. And that was our star fabric for demonstration. So we're going to fold this up and get this out of the way. We're going to go back to the blue fabric. And here's the pocket that I've already made and stitched and turned. And I'm going to show you how to center it on your bag. So you need to turn your bag long way and match up the long edges. And this is something called finger pressing. So you can take your fingernail and press that fabric, and it's going to make a fold like you had ironed it. And then you would do the same thing with your pocket, and you will match up those 2 finger pressed points. And then you're going to measure down 4 inches. And you can use this tape or your sliding measure rule. And you're going to come down 4 inches. And then you're going to pin your pocket on. Don't pin the top because you're not going to sew there. If you pin there, you might think you're going to sew there. So you're going to sew, and you're going to start here, either corner, doesn't matter which one, and back stitch, and then go forward. And when you're top stitching, you're going really close, like about 1/8 of an inch. And the presser foot toe sometimes is about that width, and so you can kind of use that as your guide. And so you're going to sew down, top stitching, come to this corner, pivot, this long edge, and this is the long edge of your pocket. This is the shorter edge when you put it on your bag. Come over here to this corner and pivot, leaving your needle down. Press your foot up, pivot, and you turn your fabric. And then you're going to come up here and back stitch. Remember, you're moving your pins each time. You don't sew over your pins. Okay? And we're going to back stitch again and knot our fabric on both corners. And there's your pocket sewn on. So we are on step number 3, and we're going to be looking at figure E in your diagram. So here's the body of our bag. Here's the right sides. Here's our pocket that we did in the last step. So we're going to take the short edges and we're going to line them up right sides together. And then we are going to actually do this step right here. And this is the most confusing step of the whole bag, but you can do it. So we are going to take our slide measure and we are going to measure up from the fold. And we are going to measure up 2 inches. And we're going to take our marking instrument and we're going to mark 2 inches. And we're going to do it on the other side. Measure up 2 inches and mark. Okay, then we're going to do that on the other side as well. 2 inches, mark. 2 inches and mark. Okay, so then we're going to take a pin and we are going to put it in that mark. Yeah, edit that. Again, this is the trickiest part, but you can do it. So we're going to bring this first mark over here to this other mark on the back. And when you do that, you get this look inside. And if you look at figure E again, it shows you that little triangle that's inside the fabric. So it's our bottom fold, 2 inches up, mark with a pin, and fold that in. This is your other 2-inch mark, and you line those 2-inch marks up. Again, that's inside, and you match up the raw edges, and then we're going to pin that. And we do the exact same thing over here. Our 2-inch mark, bring it up to our other 2-inch mark where our pin is. We end up with this in the center, matching up the raw edges. And we're going to pin that because this is how we're getting our pleat on the outside, our bottom of our bag. And we're going to sew 1/2 inch seam allowance here and here. And that's going to be the side of our bag. Okay, so this is the top edge of the bag, and I'm starting at the top. I'm going to do my 1/2 inch stitch. I'm going to back stitch. It's always really important to knot your stitches. And then we're going to do a 1/2 inch stitch, and we're going all the way down. We're going to sew all the way down to the fold where we made that pleat. Just gently guiding. You're never pulling your fabric. You're just guiding and keeping it straight. Stopping to remove those pins. You need to go as fast or as slow as you can to get an accurate stitch. You never want to go faster just to get it done. You want to be making sure that you keep your stitches straight. All right, so on my bag that I've already finished, this is what that seam would look like. And then you're going to want to edge finish because a lot of cottons are going to fray. And if you have a serger, which is what I did here, this has been serged, you can do your serger. If you do not have a serger, you can always use a zigzag stitch, and that just keeps the edges from fraying. So here's the side seam that we just did. Now in clothing construction, when you are opening up a seam and pressing it, it would be open like this. But in this instance, we are folding it to one side or the other, doesn't matter which way, left or right. And these would have been finished already with your zigzag or your serger stitch. And then it's going to be pressed at your ironing table to the side. And it will look like this on a finished bag. Here's our side seam. I know that the thread's not as easy to see because it's matching the fabric, but there's here's our seam allowance. Here's my serged edges, and then it's been folded over. And here's our bottom pleat. And here's that pleat on our side seam here, and we're folding it to the side. Now we're going to flip it right side out and show you that what that pleat looks on the outside. So here's our side seam, and here's what you made by folding that pleat in. It makes this little triangle. And it's hard to see on this blue on blue. Side seam and our box triangle. Okay, so we are on step number 5, and we are going to sew our straps on. So we're going to have our bag right side out, and then we're going to take our strap. We're going to find the center of our bag and measure over 3 inches, and then we're going to line up our raw edges with our strap and our bag, and then 3 inches on this side. So let me show you. Here's our center mark of our bag that we finger pressed. And we're going to take our slide measure, gauge, and we're coming over 3 inches. We're going to put the finished edge of the strap at the 3-inch mark and match up the raw edges. And either pin or clip. And then center line again, 3 inches. So we're going to take our strap and we're going to kind of fold it so we don't get it twisted. 3 inches from our center, the raw edge, the finished edge, sorry, and match up the raw edges at the top of the bag. So we're going to start at our side seam, sewing a 1/4 inch, come to our strap, sew across, move your clip or your pins, 1/4 inch across this strap, and you're going to go all the way around the bag. And on the other side of the bag, you would have also done the same technique with your other strap. So now we're going to go to the machine and actually sew this 1/4 inch, and then we're going to add an inch, another inch. I'm going to show you how to use a piece of tape on your machine to get an accurate marking. You need another set of 1-inch stitching across your straps all the way across the bag. Okay, so here's a little tip I have for you to actually keep your 1-inch marking that we need. You can use this green painter's tape, or sometimes it's blue painter's tape. And the only reason you want to use this instead of regular masking tape is that it's an easy release, so it's not going to get all sticky on your machine. So you can drop your needle down if you want to. On your throat plate, there should be a 1-inch mark, but you can also use your seam guide measure, and it'll give you, up against your needle, it'll give you a 1-inch mark. You can pull your tape out, and you can put a piece of tape all the way on your seam bed or your sewing machine bed, and that's going to give you a long line to add your fabric up against, and then you're going to get an exact 1 inch. That will really help you. Okay? So we're going to start at the side seam, and we're going to do a 1/4 inch. I'm coming up to the strap, and I'm going to stop and make sure that's all nice and flat there. Raw edges even. Drop the presser foot. 1/4 inch. Remember I said go as fast or as slow as you can comfortably get a straight line. Take our clip or a pin out. Then you're going to go 1/4 inch. And for demonstrations, I'm going to stop, but you're going to go all the way around the bag 1/4 inch. Then you're going to use that tape, and you're going to come back and line up 1 inch. And you're going to sew 1 inch all the way around the bag. You're going to go over top of your straps. All the way around your bag. So we're at the sewing or the ironing area. We've got our straps 1/4 inch and 1 inch. So we're going to fold in on that 1 inch stitching line and press all the way around our bag. And then we'll flip and we're going to fold in again, and this gets rid of our raw edges and gives us a nice finished edge. And press all the way around. And then we're going to go back to the machine and stitch. So here's what it looks like. We've got it ironed under. I went ahead and pinned it because if you don't, it's going to move on you. And you want to make sure you get this strap out. You don't want to sew it down on the other side. So we're going to put this in the machine, and we're going to go close to this folded edge, and this is going to be like top stitching, so you're not going to go very far away. And I like to use the little toe of my presser foot, and that's about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just going to come in on top of there. And again, this is top stitching. You can back stitch a couple stitches. And I'm going to go forward. I'm going to stop at that pin. Make sure your strap is out. We're going over top of our strap. Move that pin. And you're going to go all the way around the top of the bag. I'm going to stop there, but you would keep going all the way around, and then I'm going to go back here to our 1 inch, and I'm going to go close to this edge now. I'm going to move my needle, and I'm going to use this toe on the edge of my folded fabric, and that's going to give me about 1/8 of an inch. If you notice, I'm using this button. I don't use a foot pedal. My machine has this option, and it's just so much easier for me. I have better control. But my machine will take a foot pedal, but I just prefer to use this button. And again, you'd be going all the way around your bag. That will give you a nice finished inside. Okay, so to recap a little bit, if you were making this bag and you were going to enter it into the fair, again, you want to go as slow as you possibly can to get your straight seams. And then you want to make sure that you clip any threads, any of the loose threads. The judges are looking for all those loose threads being clipped, straight seams, and a good seam finish on this one. The side seam is the only one that has raw edges exposed. Everything else is sewn under. And then on the side seam, when you're folding this top under, you're going to get the outside side seam, and when you fold it over, you want to make sure you line up that side seam on the inside to that side seam stitching that's on the inside. And we didn't go all the way around in our sample, but you would be going all the way around, and your top stitching is what's going to show if you do it in the same color or if you do it in a contrasting color. That's what's going to show. So just a couple tips there on finishing up your bag, and you're done. Thanks for watching. You can learn more about our programs in the UK College of Agricultural, Food and Environment by contacting your local extension office or exploring the website links in the description for this lesson. Remember to join us on Facebook or Instagram for another virtual experience. Happy sewing!
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions about the Kentucky State Fair or what you might be able to enter, please contact your local extension office. Have a wonderful day.